Daring greatly. Embracing vulnerability is a path to wholehearted living. Vulnerability stands at the core of our experiences as humans. It drives our fears yet also serves as the birthplace of love, belonging, joy, courage, empathy, and creativity. When we reject vulnerability, we shield ourselves from both pain and the experiences that bring purpose and meaning to our lives. The vulnerability paradox. We often view vulnerability as weakness, but this understanding misses a crucial truth. Vulnerability actually requires tremendous courage and strength. It means showing up and allowing ourselves to be seen when there are no guarantees about the outcome. True vulnerability involves uncertainty, risk, and emotional exposure. Many of us have adopted the cultural myth that being vulnerable means being weak, and that we can opt out of vulnerability. This leads to attempts to numb our feelings, perfect ourselves and our lives, and pretend that our actions don't impact others. But vulnerability isn't a choice, it's our reality. We can only decide whether to acknowledge it and engage with it. Shame and the shame resilience theory. Shame permeates our culture. It makes us feel deeply flawed and unworthy of love and belonging. Shame tells us that we're not good enough, and it thrives in secrecy, silence, and judgment. To develop resilience against shame, we must 1. Recognize shame and understand our personal triggers. 2. Practice critical awareness about the social and cultural forces behind our shame. 3. Reach out and share our stories with trusted individuals. 4. Speak openly about shame to dismantle its power. Men and women experience shame differently. Women often feel shame around contradictory and competing expectations. Be perfect but don't make a fuss about it. Be thin and beautiful but don't be vain. Men typically experience shame around weakness and the perception of being weak. Wholehearted living. Engaging with the world from a place of worthiness. Wholehearted living means engaging with life from a place of worthiness. It involves cultivating certain practices. Letting go of what people think and embracing authenticity. Releasing perfectionism and embracing self-compassion. Giving up emotional numbing and cultivating resilience. Stopping the constant hustle for approval and embracing calm and stillness. Letting go of comparison and embracing gratitude and joy. Abandoning exhaustion as a status symbol and embracing play and rest. Overcoming anxiety and self-doubt to embrace intuition and faith. Letting go of self-doubt and embracing creativity. The vulnerability armory. How we protect ourselves. When faced with uncertainty, risk, and emotional exposure, we naturally seek protection. Common armor includes foreboding joy. When joy feels overwhelming, we dress rehearse tragedy to prevent disappointment. Instead, we should practice gratitude to fully experience joy. Perfectionism. We believe if we do everything perfectly, we can avoid criticism and blame. Perfectionism isn't about healthy achievement, it's about using accomplishment to win approval. Numbing. We attempt to dull the pain of vulnerability through addictive behaviors, but they also numb positive emotions and create more pain. Victim or victim mentality. We either move to control situations or allow ourselves to be controlled rather than engaging with the messy middle of vulnerability. Floodlighting. Oversharing is a way to test a new relationship rather than allowing real trust to develop over time. Making the ordinary exceptional. Finding fault in everything to create constant drama as a way to distract from real vulnerability. Serpentining. Zigzagging to avoid vulnerability, changing directions to sidestep real connection and exposure. Vulnerability in different areas of life. Vulnerability in parenting. Children are hardwired for struggle, and when we try to perfect and protect them from discomfort, we rob them of the opportunity to develop resilience. Instead, we should help them understand and engage with their emotions. Teach them that they are worthy of love regardless of achievement. Model healthy vulnerability and authenticity. Avoid shame as a parenting tool. Our job isn't to perfect our children but to help them know that they are worthy of love and belonging just as they are. Vulnerability in education and work. Organizations and schools often operate from a place of fear and scarcity rather than embracing vulnerability and creativity. Leaders who create shame-free environments where vulnerability is encouraged foster innovation and growth. Effective leaders understand that vulnerability isn't weakness. They know when to ask for help, admit mistakes, take risks, and show up without all the answers. This type of daring leadership inspires others to engage and contribute. In education, shame-free classrooms where teachers model vulnerability and create a sense of worthiness foster learning and growth mindsets in students. Vulnerability in relationships. Meaningful connections require vulnerability. We must allow ourselves to be seen, even when there's no guarantee of acceptance. This means expressing our needs and fears, setting boundaries and respecting others, taking risks with our hearts, being authentic even when it's uncomfortable, practicing forgiveness of ourselves and others. Daring greatly, a practice for daily living. Daring greatly means having the courage to enter the arena of life, to risk failure, criticism, and hurt in pursuit of love, belonging, and joy. It means acknowledging our vulnerability and engaging with it rather than running from it. The first step is becoming aware of our armor and the ways we protect ourselves from vulnerability. Then we can practice showing up, being seen, and living brave. This journey requires support. We need trusted individuals who will offer us empathy and understanding as we learn to embrace vulnerability. These should be people who have earned the right to hear our stories and who understand the difference between empathy and sympathy. Ultimately, daring greatly means living a wholehearted life, a life defined not by what we accomplish or how others perceive us, but by our courage to show up authentically despite our fears. It's about recognizing that vulnerability isn't something to endure but something to embrace as the path to our most meaningful experiences. In a culture that often equates vulnerability with weakness and values perfection over authenticity, daring greatly is an act of rebellion, a commitment to living from a place of worthiness rather than scarcity. It's choosing courage over comfort and connection over protection, not just once but every day in the countless moments that make up our lives.